Namaste everyone, and good morning. It's my privilege to be able to introduce someone who I've gotten to know really well throughout the last few years, and your keynote speaker here this morning, Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Rajiv ji is a public intellectual, scholar, and very prolific writer and speaker. After a successful career in business, he dedicated his life to furthering understanding of the Dharmic traditions here in the West, as well as around the world. In order to do this, he established the Infinity Foundation, based out of Princeton, New Jersey, in order to endow scholarly and field projects that explored often forgotten knowledge from India and explored rarely trodden topics in comparative religion and Hinduism studies. Author of 5 best-selling books, including most recently The Battle of Sanskrit and Academic Hinduphobia, which just released, Rajiv ji is always thought-provoking. Please give a brotherly Philadelphia welcome to Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji.
Namaste. I'm delighted to be here for this very important day and want to thank all the organizers who put this together. The topic I have is to discuss how to situate yoga in the context of things that are familiar to us like science, religion, cultures, nationality, ethnicity, and so on. And there have been controversies I want to address with the hope of bringing unity, because yoga means unity. So I want to talk about the issues that are there so we can resolve them. There are issues like, is yoga Indian? Is yoga Hindu? That kind of thing. And you will see I try to present a new framework in which to think about these issues. And this framework will lead to unity, which is the spirit of yoga. And I will also try to convince you that the debates that have been going on are actually in a no-win situation and are divisive because of the way they've been framed. I'll start with the history of how we got here. In the 60s, there was a huge import of yoga and various other related lifestyles from India as part of the counterculture in the United States. America had a crisis of myth with the Vietnam War and many other things, and many Americans, so-called hippies at that time, went to India, had gurus, got initiated, practiced many things, and got huge amounts of benefit. Some of them stayed there, some of them came back. They learned things like meditation, they learned mantra. Mantra became part of the American vocabulary, and chakras and tantra. A lot of vegetarianism became popular. Some amazing things happened. The divine as feminine is a very central part of our tradition, our Vedic Hindu tradition. Yoga is a part of that. So this was something new. A lot of feminists found for the first time that they could respect, worship the divine as feminine, which wasn't there in the Abrahamic religions. So some amazing new things came to American culture. And then there was this idea of the sacredness of the cosmos, the earth as sacred. The eco-feminism movement started by Vandana Shiva from India and became very widespread in the American counterculture. So along with this came philosophies like non-dualism, Vedanta, and things of that sort. Now, these things in the last 40 years, 50 years, have become digested into American culture, which means they become Americanized. So when you distill something into various elements, various parts, you get many things out of it. So the physical yoga, what you may call the YMCA yoga, or the yoga for health and stress reduction and so on, is one kind of an output of that. And many people sort of incorrectly think that that's all of yoga. Well, that's just one aspect of it. And then yoga also got Christianized. There's Christian yoga. And so there's many different kinds of yoga that came. And yoga also became studied by science. Neuroscientists wanting to know the effects on the mind, healing as part of health. So it became part of medicine, holistic medicine. And therapy. There are so many clinical therapies in psychology, cognitive behavior, cognitive therapies that are based on this, on yoga. So yoga kind of got taken apart and disassembled into many components. And so these have unfortunately become separated as isolated domains. The people who study the neuroscientific effects aren't necessarily connected with bhakti or devotion, for example. And people who are into just yoga for health and exercise might not be fully aware of the higher states of consciousness that are achievable. Then came a huge wave of Indian diaspora into this country. And that started a conversation on who owns yoga, what is yoga, is it Eastern, Western, is it Hindu, is it Christian, is it secular, is it medical, is it for enlightenment purposes, what is it? And this is a very good thing, because debates, when resolved properly, can lead to higher understanding. Now, the debates on how to locate and situate yoga have been framed in terms of categories like religion, and I don't think yoga fits that, or science in a very material sense, and yoga doesn't fit that, or just health, and that's too narrow. So I want to put these aside for the next few minutes, and I want to discuss yoga in its own terms. What is yoga in its own framework? We need to understand that, and then we can say what might be the relationship of X or Y with this framework. So in yoga, there are required injunctions, do's and don'ts, called yam and niyam. It's not just you do this exercise and you do this breathing and you reduce your stress and you are done. Even before you are taught that, the first principles of ethics, lifestyle are taught. So you cannot separate it from ethics. You cannot say that, well, because it's universal, therefore anything goes. A medicine, when a doctor gives you a medicine, he will also tell you how to take it. You cannot take certain things with it. You must have a certain diet. You must have some lifestyle. So the fact that the medicine will work on anybody is true, but whoever it works on must comply with the methods, with the teaching. So similarly, yoga is universal, but the yogi who is doing it has to comply with certain requirements. So these are yam and niyam. These are lifestyle requirements. So it is universal, doesn't matter what your background or whatever might be, but you have to comply with certain requirements. So that's the debate. The debate is on what are the requirements that yoga has in order for it to work properly. A doctor will also tell you that certain other medicines are contraindicated. They will conflict with it. They will clash with it. It might do you harm. It might put you or your health in danger. So just because this is a good medicine and it works, doesn't mean that it works no matter what you do, no matter how careless you are, no matter how you disrespect it. So yoga also has certain things I will mention, I'll give some examples, which are contraindicated. It is universal, but there are some contraindicated practices, diets, lifestyles, ideologies that will not go well with yoga. So its universality is not what we are questioning. We're just saying that it comes as a package deal. An expert on plants, and I'm working with somebody, we are developing a garden, will tell you that this particular plant should not be grown next to that kind of a tree. It's not very good. They'll tell you what kind of sunshine or shade it needs, what kind of water it needs, what kind of direction, where it should be. So the fact that yoga has to be practiced also implies a certain kind of soil, a certain kind of climate, a certain vibration, a certain ambiance has to be part of your yoga practice. Which is why your yoga teacher will tell you to respect your mat, take your shoes off, certain bowing, certain mantra, certain chanting, certain affirmations in your life, non-harming, what we call ahimsa. These are all part of the cultural or ethical soil in which yoga is to be practiced. So universality doesn't mean you do whatever you feel like. That's a moronic idea of universality. I have so many people, like this morning, somebody on my Facebook page says, yoga is universal, is doing good to everybody. What is all this humbug about, where it works, how it works, what the requirements are, and so on? The point is, when a doctor tells you the requirements for taking a medicine, or somebody installs a tree and says, this is the way you take care of the tree, that is not humbug. That is part of the science of that particular mechanism. Now, the issue of the scope of yoga has to be understood much broader than people usually do. There is the yoga at the individual level, which is practices that are body practices. And there's a wide range of these body practices. And this includes pranayama, which is the breath control. It includes tantra. It includes meditation. It includes mantra. Various techniques that different systems have. The ultimate goal of this at the individual level is to take you to enlightenment, a state of consciousness. It is called Jivan Mukti. It is here and now and not in heaven. It is not something promised to you after you die. It happens to you now in your body as you are living. So a belief system which blocks that, a belief system which says you are born sinner, has a blockage, because yoga says you are eternally divine. You are born divine. You are intrinsically divine. The term is Satchitanand. So everyone is inherently divine. There is an issue there. You have to resolve it. You have to come to terms. There is no brand name issue on what religion you call it. It's a question of ideology and metaphysics. You have to have a consistent metaphysics with the principles of yoga. And anyone can practice of any background, but they have to understand that they must be aligned with the yoga metaphysics. And the yoga metaphysics is very clear on the nature of the self. The first thing that has to be understood is, who am I, the one who's going to do yoga? Is it this body? Is it this mind? Well, of course, those are part of it, but who else am I? And is this being that I am, what is its relationship with the cosmos and with the divine? And so the answers you get may be in alignment and conducive to your yogic path, or may be in conflict and block it. So this is an issue that is a metaphysical issue, it's a theological issue, it can't be wished away, it is not humbug, and it is not something that violates the universalism. It merely says that the universalism works within a certain set of ethics and ideas and practices. Beyond the individual, yoga is also second person, I, you. My relationship, whether it's family, whether it's community, whether it's society, whether it's humanity at large, whether it's animals, I, you also applies to trees, applies to mountains, applies to rivers, applies to the ecosystem and the whole cosmos. So the yogi's relationship with what's out there as I, you, is very different than saying it. When you look at something and say this is a thing, it, and when you look at the same entity and say you, there's a whole difference, because there's a personhood there. So seeing the cosmos as person, as a divine manifestation, is a very important part of yoga. And this has theological implications, you have to understand. And then there is a third person, which is ideas, metaphysics, concepts. So yoga is very much related to the Vedanta philosophy. And of course there's many schools and many variations of how we interpret it. But it cannot be divorced from that. It cannot, so whether it is the individual practice of yoga, or whether it is the collective practice of us, our yoga, or whether it is abstract ideas and concepts and philosophies and so on, yoga cannot be just surgically cut out and transplanted somewhere else. It's like taking a plant and putting it into a soil or a water system or a climate which is hostile to it or toxic to it. So yoga is universal, but it does have its own scientific principles of compliance that people must be aware of. Now this is a very big and long subject that I've opened. Note that in my explanation, I didn't use words like Indian or Hindu or Christian or Bible. I did not use reference points, which a lot of people start with that, and therefore they never get to the level of depth that I want to take you to. I want to put all those brand names aside. It has nothing to do with the branding of things. In that sense, it's universal. But it does have principles. It does have practices. It does have do's and don'ts. It does have things that are consistent with it that will help you, and other things that will stop you, and some things that are outright dangerous for your practice. So universalism doesn't mean that anything goes. That's a major confusion that people have. There's a recent announcement by a prominent guru that just as science has no, science doesn't belong to anybody, so also yoga doesn't belong. He's right in the sense that it doesn't belong in sense of ownership. But that doesn't mean that the universality of yoga means that you can mix it with whatever you feel like, and you can graft it into any ideology or any practice or any diet system that you feel like. So yoga's links with India and with the Vedic tradition are because of the principles I mentioned. Because there are certain worldviews, metaphysics, ideas of who I am, what is the purpose of life, who are we all, what is the cosmos, where it came from. These ideas are very intrinsic to yoga, because yoga is a product of certain worldviews and practices very much that are Vedic. So yes, it is universal, and yes, everybody can and should use it. It's like a tree. Its fruit everybody can enjoy, but the roots are very specific roots for that tree. They have to be nurtured. You have to nurture the roots, and the fruits can be exported to all parts of the world. And the roots and the soil are intertwined. The climate is intertwined. So this is a large subject I won't go into now, but any further. But in the afternoon there is a Q&A. Someone's going to interview me. Parth is going to interview me. So I hope we will be able to go into more detail, and I will see you later. Namaskar. Thank you.